I don't even like roguelikes, but my god, I think I'm in love with Hades. The story is about the playable character of Zagreus, who is the son of Hades, aka the god of the underworld, aka the guy from the title. It follows Zagreus as he attempts to escape from the underworld to reach Mount Olympus, at times aided by the gifts given to him by other Olympians. I won't reveal the reason as to why Zagreus wishes to leave the underworld even though he's the prince of it, because that might count as spoilers and we are not doing that here, so yeah. The rest is up to you to find out and I'm not gonna spoil anything. Now the basic plot of the game is decent, but the reason as to why the story is actually subtly brilliant is its writing or how it's told. Hades has one of the most memorable casts of the games I've played in recent memory. The character interactions here are handled incredibly well in my opinion. I don't even like when you get this text thingy along with dialogues instead of actual animations for conversations in games, but goddamn the writing here is good enough that I don't even care. I was always intrigued as to what I was gonna learn with every single conversation. The dialogue here is really gripping and it also changes depending on what happened in your playthrough, or things like obtaining new stuff which always felt fresh. This is only made better by the fact that the voice acting here is also top notch by everyone.
I trust that the mirror in your bedchamber has proved satisfactory, dear child.
Better than I could have possibly imagined, Nix.
All I really felt kinda let down by is the lack of more fully animated cutscenes like the one that plays in the beginning. But even with what I just told you, a game's story can get tedious if it wasn't for the way it's told. And the way it's told here is really good. The exposition you obtain in Hades is sometimes found in the middle of your run, where you might also get a subtle side quest, or when you return to the house of Hades and talk to characters after dying in your run. The story moments were not interruptions, they were much needed finely crafted breaks that added even more to the experience, sometimes in the form of an actual breathing room in the middle of all the intense action that happens in the gameplay, which is phenomenal. The core gameplay loop has you fighting through chambers or rooms spread across 4 zones until you finish your playthrough. At its heart, Hades is a hack and slash game, and goddamn if it isn't a great one. The moment-to-moment gameplay is intense and just so much raw adrenaline-fueled fun at times it's actually hilarious. The movement is smooth as butter, the inputs are responsive as When there are tons of enemies at a time, it becomes sort of a juggling act. Connecting with hits is satisfying, and no, I'm not referring to domestic violence. Man, I really need to tone down my jokes. Another instance of things I usually don't like in other games but don't have a problem with in Hades is the damage numbers, because here they feel kinda essential. Good thing is, you will most probably find what's good for you, because Hades supports all sorts of chaotic head-on and more spaced out strategic playstyles beautifully. Level design is simple, but it's effective in the little things, like the fact that you can dash through obstacles but enemies can't, so it gives you an opportunity to create some separation. Traps hurt the enemies and Zagreus both, so my mindfulness was also required to be somewhat careful while moving and keep a lookout for the surroundings as well. And speaking of the surroundings, visually the game is beautiful. It's like this painted art style which is kinda minimalistic but really gorgeous to look at. The environments are detailed, colorful, and have a personality to them. Same goes for the character designs, they are really damn cool. The animations are fluid and transition or cancel each other nicely. The one area where I do have a problem with the visual department is the effects. Don't get me wrong, the visual effects in Hades are pretty and add to the satisfaction of the combat, but at times when there were a lot of enemies to fight at once, the effects just got overbearing and there was no clue as to what the was happening on the screen. It was just rainbow vomit, and I'm not talking about feminists. At that time, the visual output was borderline useless, and I had to rely solely on my mechanical input and big brain intellect. But even in situations like this, Hades never dropped a single frame. Optimization on display here is polished as and that polish is carried to the rest of the game as well. During all the time I spent with Hades, I encountered 0 bugs or technical issues. That is a big achievement for a modern game in my books, like Lady Dimitrescu's tits big. Like the name of a Marvel character, what I'm about to say might seem strange at first, but it'll start making sense. If I personally had to compare Hades to another game, it would be Doom Eternal, because that was just the general vibe I was getting. Now, is this just me finding a way to talk about Doom Eternal because I love it so much? Yes, but it's also more than that. Both games have slick, super responsive action that is butter smooth and super satisfying to play. Both games push you to constantly switch tactics in the middle of hectic gameplay situations depending on the changing enemy types. In both games, you have to earn being the badass through mechanical skill. Both games have intense video gamey gameplay that always encourages being on the move. And finally, in both games, this slick, glorious, fast-paced action happens to the music that is absolutely incredible. The music in Hades is unique, with like metal mixed with classical, godlike sounding instruments. It's just so fucking good and adds so much to the overall experience. The songs are also wonderfully done, just I don't know about you, but this singer is my favorite character in the game.
Good riddance.
There are 4 regions of the underworld, with each having chambers, enemy types, and characters of their own. You need to complete a certain amount of chambers to progress through to the next region. How you navigate the levels is also really interesting. Most of the times you are given the choice between multiple doors to proceed, with each having a different reward at the end. For example, are you gonna go after a heart that increases your max health, or a boon from a god you prefer for your build? Are you gonna choose to go to the shop to hopefully find something you'll find useful like healing items, or are you gonna go for a room with a large amount of currency? I really love the fact that Hades gives you this sort of choice system to encourage more strategizing. It's basically like choosing your next reward, which makes you think even before you enter a fight. And it also kind of makes you not blame the game as much for your next death and be less bitchy about it. The final chamber of each region of the underworld has a boss fight, and god damn it, they're so intense. They require you to think on your feet even more and make for a blood pumping experience. When I was in these, my heart was pounding as hard as Johnny sins when he sees some cooch. The boss battles are just good old classic hardcore pure gamer fun, man. Now I'm gonna be honest, Hades is hard. Wait, that sounded wrong. I mean, Hades is a difficult game, yes, even for a pro gamer such as myself. You will die a ton, but that's kind of the thing. You get accustomed to death as it's an essential part of the experience, because it's an opportunity for you to get better and make your next run even more fun. As I mentioned earlier, every death also acts as an opportunity to learn more about the characters and advancing the story forward. Whenever I found myself discouraged to continue in a situation like a run where I lost to a boss who was really close to dying, the dialogue was enough to bring me back in and try again. That is also helped by a lot by the splendid progression systems at play here, which have just so much to them, and we are gonna talk about some of them now. As I said before, you return to the House of Hades every time you die. It's like your main hub in the game, where you get to interact with characters as well as some gameplay mechanics. You unlock new weapons in the House of Hades by collecting a certain number of keys in your runs. You have a sword as the first weapon, and you can unlock stuff like a bow, spear, gauntlets, etc. Each weapon has around 4 different types of basic attacks. Hades is one of the few games where every single weapon can be called good. Like, out of the 6 in the game, there is no weapon that is not worth it, and that is mainly because of the boons. No, I did not say boobs, I said boons, you horny fuck. As I mentioned earlier, Zagreus is helped by the gifts given to him by other Olympians, and those gifts come in the form of boons, which are one of the most important things in the game. Each god gives you a different boon depending on the power that god has. For example, Poseidon gives you powers based on water, while Zeus gives you powers based on lightning. Every time you interact with a boon, you get to choose between 3 powers. These are not just simple minor stat boosters like in most other games. They are actual powers that completely change how you play based on your build. There's a boon that allows you to deflect enemy attacks back to them. Boons that inflict doom, that is basically extra damage sometime after you have already hit an enemy. There's charged attacks for weapons that don't have them by default. There's shockwaves with dashes, range enhancements, overtime damage, lightning blasts. Like, even the boons that enhance pre-existing abilities enhance them so hard and add something extra on top of that as well. All the boons combine seamlessly with each other, like charged plus explosion, or charged plus enhanced backstab damage on top of the doom damage you already have. On the other hand, I like how you have to sometimes have a trade of sorts, like this power that explodes the spear to deal more damage on impact, but in doing that, it in turn eliminates the easy backstab. I hope you got the point. Boons themselves can be sold or upgraded as well. They can change your entire opinion of a weapon. At first, I wasn't really feeling the guns, but then I chose some boons that ended up making me actually like it. Hell, there's super abilities that do shit like calling lightning strikes on your enemies. There's just so much more here. The amount of depth is truly ridiculous, just like your mom's Because you lose your current build of boons every time you die, every run makes for a different but satisfying style of experience. But there are also permanent enhancements that are available at the House of Hades. For example, you have this mirror in your room that allows you to get permanent abilities like double dashes and an extra life of sorts in the form of Death Defying, which automatically heals you to a certain extent when your health reaches 0. You have keepsakes that are basically enhancement or abilities that level up or get better the more you play with them equipped. Plus, you can also add stuff to the regions of the underworld as well, like mini shops, health fountains, etc. by using the contracts feature to help you on the go. The gameplay is so goddamn rewarding while never taking away from the challenge. There are even more other risk-reward mechanics at play here as well, like challenge chests that require you to beat additional enemies quickly in order to gain more from a single chamber. Another example is some chambers that have 2 boons. Here you choose one god's boon and the other god whose boon you rejected sends a lot of enemies to fight you. But if you manage to beat them, you get to choose from the other god's boons as well. The game can be with you and against you at the same time. As I mentioned earlier, you also randomly meet characters in the middle of your runs, and other than the story exposition I talked about earlier, they help you with items, enhancements, etc. as well. On the flip side, sometimes the game will throw mini bosses at you out of nowhere. In Hades' roguelike systems, you feel like you're actually moving forward every damn time instead of just simply repeating the same shit again and again, whether it be with the story or the gameplay mechanics. But it's not just you who's getting good. For example, the bosses unlock new moves as well over time, so things didn't get stale no matter how many times I faced them. And if that isn't enough, along with the other stuff I mentioned before, the boss battles can also just completely change. Like at first I died to this boss, and when I came back, he had a partner with him as well. So all of a sudden it became a 2-on-1 fight. Really strong vibes of my parents and teachers against me. You know the best part about everything that I've talked about? It's that there are so many different ways and choices, but it's never overwhelming and fits right in place just like my dick. Hades is immediately accessible in a genre that more often than not feels like a chore to get into. And that is because everything, whether it be story or gameplay, feels so gradually progressing and evolving. It isn't one of those games that bombards you with new shit like every 2 seconds. The introduction of new characters, mechanics, enemy types, or anything else happens only after you've spent a good amount of time with what you already have. So when the game does spice things up, it's exciting and doesn't feel out of place. Now I wanted to talk about how stuff changes after you complete your first successful playthrough, but I don't want to spoil the surprises for you, because the first successful run is like completing Act 1 of the game, because to get the true ending, you need 9 successful runs. All that I can tell you is that there's still a lot more to experience even after you have had 1 successful run, and it's not just some minor stuff. It is truly game-changing mechanics as well, like some of the stuff I obtained through playing only became useful once I completed a playthrough. So in conclusion, it's not often that a game changes my perspective and makes me like something that I previously haven't had a good experience with, but Hades actually did that, and boy did it do that hard.
That's what she said.
I can't promise that it will 100% do that for you, or that it will make you stick around it for a long time. But maybe what I can promise is that if you like action games with challenge, you will have come loads of fun with Hades. Again, that sounded even worse than I expected. Don't let all the success that Hades has garnered distract you from the fact that this is still yet another indie game that is so refined, has so much depth to its mechanics, so fun to play, and a slap to the face of every fucking AAA company pumping out shitty dumpster fires even with budgets bigger than my hate for tailing missions. I bought Hades during the Steam winter sale, and even the price was nice. So thank you all so much for watching this video till the end. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and also hit the bell notification icon so that you may never miss out on any future content. Some of my other videos are on your screen right now, including my latest track, Flip the Script, which is streaming on all platforms. Consider checking them out as well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.